Sylvie Tremblay's studio always smelled faintly of fresh snow, even in July. A lifetime of coaxing art from ice had given the 33-year-old sculptor a sixth sense for chill and texture, and that intuition was working overtime as she unloaded the last crystalline block from her truck into the refrigerated competition tent on Montreal's Quai de l'Horloge. The International Snow and Ice Festival was her favourite week of the year. Tourists drifted through the old port bundled in jewel-coloured toques. Musicians serenaded the river with jazz standards. And somewhere nearby there was always a street vendor willing to exchange hot maple syrup for a smile. It was a season of gentle magic, exactly what Sylvie tried to capture in her entry. Lumière du Nord, an 8-foot column of twisting glass clear ribbons meant to suggest the northern lights. She slid the final block onto a sled, then paused. A wisp of fog rose from the ice, hazier than the vapour that usually rolled off super-chilled surfaces. She touched the block. It felt tepid. Not warm, of course, but definitely not as numbing as it should have been. "You're shivering," called a voice behind her. "Cold day? Or is that nerves?" Viktor Ivanov, the reigning festival champion, sauntered in with the swagger of an athlete entering a stadium. He was sculpting a life-size Pegasus and had already bragged to reporters that its wings would be so thin you could read the Gazette through them. "I'm fine," Sylvie said, flashing her polite Canadian smile. "Good luck with your horse." "Pegasus," he corrected, tipping an imaginary hat. "May the best artist win." When he was gone, she tested another block. Same faint warmth, and for the first time she noticed tiny beads of water pooling under the palette. That couldn't be right. Blocks came straight from the festival's deep freeze, 20 below at least. A drop in temperature took hours, yet hers had softened during a 15-minute truck ride. Sylvie's breath misted in front of her. She jabbed a chisel into the suspect block. The blade met something metallic with a hollow ping. Metal? Inside virgin ice? She switched to her trimming saw, carving a small window. Embedded at the block's core was a cylinder no thicker than a lipstick tube, laced with hair-fine copper wires. She extracted it using pliers. The moment it left the ice, it buzzed softly and glowed cherry red. A heater. Someone had hidden a micro-heater in her blocks. But why? The festival's rules were strict. Competitors purchased ice directly from the organizers, guaranteeing identical composition and clarity. A bad batch could ruin works worth thousands in sponsorships. She dragged the suspicious block to the inspection table at the tent entrance. Marine Lefebvre, the festival coordinator, hustled over, headset askew. "Problems already. We haven't even opened to the public." "Marine, look." Sylvie showed her the cylinder. "My blocks are melting. There are heaters inside." Marine frowned. "Impossible. Our supplier is the same as every year. Arctic Pure." "Tell that to the puddle." Sylvie tilted the block so water sluiced onto Marine's boots. Marine sighed. "Okay, fill out an incident report. I'll get replacements sent over. Meanwhile, keep quiet. Tourists can smell scandal like fried onions." Sylvie agreed, but unease lingered in her chest long after Marine whisked the heater away. She'd competed 8 years running and never lost her materials. Replacements meant extra work and, worse, lost sleep. Her design called for dawn light to pass those certain curves, and delays threatened that alignment. On her way home, she stopped at La Petite Théière, a tea shop glowing warm against grey dusk. The bell jingled as she entered, and Madame Liane Nguyen, retired engineering professor, tea sommelier, and Sylvie's honorary aunt, greeted her. I brewed Vietnamese oolong, Madame said, pushing a steamy cup across the counter. Your cheeks say you need it. Sylvie inhaled caramel orchid steam and exhaled frustration. Someone sabotaged my ice. Over honeyed sips, she described the micro heater. Madame's eyes glittered with scholarly curiosity. Battery? Heating coil? That size could reach 50 degrees in minutes if triggered by a timer or remote signal. Perfect to make ice slump without catching fire. But who gains? Sylvie asked. Competitors? Victor's cocky, not criminal. Madame tapped the counter thoughtfully. Perhaps the heater is vehicle, not motive? Sylvie blinked. You think it's hiding something? Madame grinned. Ice melts, evidence vanishes. Ideal for smugglers. Drill a cavity, slip in contraband, seal with distilled water. After judging, activate the heater. Meltwater flows down the drain, taking any trace with it. Sylvie's stomach tightened. Contraband like diamonds? Or microchips or documents, Madame acknowledged. But diamonds love Montreal. The city's jewelry district is 10 minutes away. That night, Sylvie tossed in bed, her cat Mitaine kneading the quilt. Smugglers using festival ice. Was that why Marine asked her to keep quiet? She replayed the day's details. Her loading bay sat next to the sponsor pavilion, which this year belonged to Maison Fournier, a luxury jeweler unveiling $1 million snowflake necklace during the festival. Their security was vigorous, tall guards, black overcoats. If priceless gems were moving around, they would be involved, willingly or not. At 3:17 a.m., one thread tugged free in her brain. The heater warmed only after removal. Maybe its activation was triggered by exposure to air. That meant someone had planned for the sculptures to stand on display until evening, then quietly liquefy, swallowing proof before midnight cleanup crews arrived. She bolted upright, startling Mitaine. Unless, she whispered, the diamonds come out first. A plan formed like frost on a window. Next morning she arrived at the tent early, carrying a thermos of Madame's strongest puer. Marine waved her toward a fresh shipment of ice. No defects this time, promise. Sylvie thanked her, then discreetly marked each new block with a Sharpie dot. If sabotage returned, she'd know which ones had been swapped. By noon, tourists poured in, cameras flashing. Victor posed beside his Pegasus, wings half-carved but already dazzling. Reporters buzzed around Maison Fournier's glass display, filming the snowflake necklace draped over a velvet bust. At one scene, Sylvie took a staged coffee break, slipping behind the sponsor pavilion. She had memorized the security schedule. 2 guards patrolled the corridor of supply tents, leaving a 2-minute window when both were at opposite ends. She used that gap to duck inside the ice storage trailer, its door secured only by a flimsy latch. Rows of surplus blocks glittered under LED strips. Each bore Arctic Pure's logo, pristine. She tapped several with her knuckles, solid all the way through, until she reached the far corner where a tarp covered irregular shapes. She lifted the tarp. There lay 5 blocks, each with a tiny puncture on one face, sealed with a plug of clear ice so expertly smoothed one needed backlighting to see it. She extracted her pocket flashlight and shone through. Shadows formed at the cores, oblong objects, darker than the heater she'd found. From her coat, she withdrew needle-nose pliers and a microfiber cloth. Working quickly, she chipped out one plug, then used the pliers to fish the object free. A mesh pouch containing 3 thumbnail-sized diamonds. No heater this time, just precious stones. Footsteps crunched outside. Sylvie replaced the pouch, resealed the plug with a spritz from a water bottle, dropped the tarp, and darted behind a tower of shipping crates. Two men entered, speaking in low French. The first was Luc Bergeron, head of festival security. The second wore Maison Fournier livery, dark suit, silver lapel pin. Sylvie recognized him from press photos. Etienne Marchal, sales director and minor society celebrity. Luc opened a cooler. "Tonight, 9 sharp. I'll text the signal." "Good," Etienne replied. "The shipment leaves for Antwerp at midnight. Once on the freighter, it's untraceable." The men exited, sealing the latch. Sylvie pressed a palm to her racing heart. Diamonds smuggled inside ice, swapped into sculptures, melted by heaters, then collected backstage. It was brilliant, and it put her squarely in danger if the conspirators realized she knew. She returned to her station, carving with furious energy, but her mind rallied options. Go to Marine? Luc was her subordinate. He could bury any complaint. The police? Without proof, she risked sounding paranoid. She needed incontrovertible evidence, preferably with the thieves caught red-handed. At dusk, she wrapped her sculpture in insulating blankets to slow nighttime frostbite and hurried to Madame's tea shop. They spread her notes across the marble table. "So they activate heaters after the crowd leaves," Madame summarized. "One collects the diamonds from the slush, the other moves them off-site." "I have until 9 tonight," Sylvie said, nibbling a sesame cookie. "Idea?" Madame's eyes twinkled. "Let's give them a show." They hatched a plan involving 2 GPS trackers from Madame's drawer of curiosities, a portable ultraviolet lamp, and the oldest trick in the theatrical handbook, misdirection. Night descended, the St. Lawrence sighing under sheets of ice. At 8:30, Sylvie lingered near her sculpture, ostensibly checking seams. The festival had closed to visitors. Only artists finishing touches and maintenance crews remained. Luc strolled past, nodding perfunctorily. He continued to the storage trailer. Good. Madame, disguised in a neon maintenance vest, wheeled a mop bucket across the plaza. She paused by Sylvie and whispered, "Tracker is in position." Sylvie's pulse stuttered, but she maintained composure. At 8:55, Etienne emerged from Maison Fournier's pavilion carrying a duffel. He slipped behind tents towards the trailer. Moments later, Luc exited with a plastic barrel, like the ones janitors used for meltwater, sloshing ominously. They loaded both items into a nondescript van, then Luc locked the doors and pocketed the keys. Before pulling away, Etienne glanced back at the competition tent. Satisfied no one watched, he tapped his phone. At that precise second, faint red points blinked inside several sculptures, including Sylvie's own. Time to act. She darted to her sculpture, peeled away a hidden access panel she'd carved earlier, and removed a heater identical to the sabotage model, but this one was inert. She had spent the afternoon gutting the original and installing a tiny UV flashlight, plus a GPS tracker sealed inside waterproof acrylic. When Luc triggered the heaters, hers did nothing except begin broadcasting location data to Madame's tablet. Sylvie switched on the UV light inside the crystal cavity. Invisible ink she'd painted over her sculpture's surface now glowed electric blue, spelling out one word: voleurs, thieves. The letters shimmered like eldritch runes. Madame killed the plaza floodlights from the master breaker she'd accidentally bumped with her mop handle. Darkness crashed over the tents. Seconds later, backup generators flickered on, but the sudden glitch was enough to send staff scurrying. Luc's van braked 20 meters away. Etienne stuck his head out the window, confusion etched on his face. Blue words blazing across ice, security lights failing, unplanned chaos. That was Sylvie's cue. She sprinted toward the van, waving frantically at patrolling police stationed near the festival gates. "Officer, they're stealing diamonds!" she shouted. The policeman, already on edge from the blackout, blocked the van's path. Etienne slammed the gearshift into reverse, but another cruiser rolled up behind, summoned by Madame's emergency call placed the instant the lights browned out. Within minutes, Luc and Etienne were cuffed. Officers searched the van, finding Sylvie's decoy heater emitting a steady ping. In the duffel lay 3 velvet jewel boxes containing unmounted diamonds matching descriptions of stones stolen weeks earlier during a quiet heist in Toronto. Evidence enough. Marine arrived, hair dishevelled. "Sylvie, what on earth—" "She caught them," confirmed the officer. "Security chief, too. You'll need a new one." Despite the chaos, Sylvie's sculpture remained intact. The UV ink quickly faded back to invisibility once she shut off the light, leaving only elegant coils of ice under moonlight. The next morning, the Gazette headlines screamed "Ice Diamonds Thawed," "Artist Foils Smuggling Ring." Reporters swarmed Sylvie, but she gave only a brief statement praising Montreal police and the sharp eyes of festival volunteers. She left Madame's name out, private heroes preferred anonymity. Victor ambled over, offering a sheepish grin. "Next time I boast, remind me which of us actually saves the day." "Deal," she laughed. Judging proceeded on schedule, the committee impressed by Sylvie's piece, and perhaps by the drama attached to it. She earned the silver medal. Victor's ethereal Pegasus deservedly kept gold, though he claimed the real victory was not ending up in prison. That evening, Sylvie padded into La Petite Théière, cradling a small bouquet of ice-blue delphiniums for Madame. "Celebration?" Madame asked. "Tea and tranquility," Sylvie replied. "After the week I've had, melting into a chair sounds lovely." Mitaine the cat, who often toured the tea shop after hours, jumped onto Sylvie's lap. Madame poured jasmine pearls, their steam curling like miniature auroras. Outside, snowflakes drifted under amber street lamps, but inside was all warmth, exactly the kind Sylvie would never sculpt, but always cherish. "How did you know Luc was dirty?" Madame asked, settling opposite. "The boots," Sylvie said. "Security wears crampons in the ice tent, but Luc's were spotless. He avoided being near sculptures while heaters were active, wouldn't risk splashes on leather." Madame raised her cup. "To noticing small things." They clinked porcelain, and for once Sylvie didn't mind if the moment melted away. Some treasures, unlike diamonds, were meant to dissolve gently, leaving only the memory of shared tea and a city safe under falling snow.